Designing your dream home is a lot like planning your dream vacation. And your floor plan is your map guiding you from place to place with purpose, rhythm, and moments of delight. Today, we're going to help you build the ultimate roadmap to help you make the most of your dream home. We share how to bring together form and function in a way that is unique to you and your goals. And we'll introduce you to a tool that helps you see what it's like to take a trip through your dream home long before the first nail is ever driven.
Welcome to the Art of Custom and Season 8, which is focused on making sure you have a smoother build. Today, we're revealing how to create that perfect blend of beauty and practicality, and what to watch out for before you sign off on your design. Enjoy!
Melody, I am really looking forward to this segment because I think it's something that most of our listeners probably aren't going to be aware of, but this concept is something that will absolutely positively make a big difference when it comes to being able to visualize how the design of your home is coming together.
What I really love about it is that it is a St. Louis business that we have in, but it doesn't matter where you are. You probably have one pretty close to you or opening close to you.
So we probably should tell everybody we're talking about Walk Your Plans. And joining us in the studio today is Chris Campbell. Chris, this is such a great idea. First of all, thanks for joining us. Welcome to the Art of Custom. I know that you have a background in architecture. You went to the University of Illinois.
That's right.
You currently are an architect and working with clients actively, and your wife is an interior designer. But you guys have taken a concept that I've heard about, I've read about, never experienced it, and taken it to where you can really help people understand, what is this house going to look like? I can virtually walk through the house before it's even built. So tell us about this concept. Tell us about this idea, which is fantastic.
Kim, I appreciate you having me. And what we're so excited about is we've had the pleasure and the opportunity to get to speak to so many people while designing their floor plans, right? While going through that process for their home. And I can maybe count on one hand how many have truly understood what they're getting into. We can do our darndest to put them in a model or in a rendering or even in a virtual reality scenario, and there's still that human element of being inside a floor plan at scale that just brings alive so many nuances of the home, so many nuances of the design that's really what we've brought to life with Walk Your Plans. You are full scale in your home for the first time. And the only other opportunity we have that right now is when we have the home framed. And at that point, as you know, it's a high stress situation. We're cooking at that point, and those conversations become a little more heavy with the amount of how much do we want to change versus how much do we want to live with?
The money.
The money, that's right.
Oh, no, you're absolutely right, Melody. Yeah, these are huge investments. And before we get too far ahead of ourselves and talk to you more, because both Melody and I have a lot of questions for you, I want our listeners to understand that you're going to be in 40 locations by the end of the year,
That's
roughly
right.
40.
That's right.
So this is something that no matter where you live, take a chance, look it up, see if it's local. If it's not, maybe it's within a quick flight or a quick drive.
That's right.
But this is invaluable if you're talking about getting to walk your home before it's actually built. This is amazing. And again, Walk Your Plans is the name of the business.
So the tech side of it, tell us how it actually works.
There's a lot of background information that would bore us all to go through how that
so
all
we'll
goes
avoid
through.
that.
But I tell you, when you walk into our facility, we're ready to go. You walk in and your floor plan's on the ground, and then any elevations we have too, we can go to scale on our walls. And so another thing that people struggle with sometimes is ceiling heights and understanding those concepts and those relationships in their home. So we have those projected as well. And so when you walk into our facility, which is a warehouse that we've converted, you're walking into your floor plan. We do 1,500 square feet at a time, and we want to be really intentional about that because anybody who's walked through a framed space, it's really easy to get distracted and lose a loved one or a stakeholder somewhere else in the space. And so what we do is we're trying to keep those conversations intentional. We try to keep everybody pointed to the right location. So if we're talking about the kitchen, we're all talking about the kitchen, not somebody in the basement or not somebody over in the primary suite. And so the tech side, there's a lot to it, but from the user standpoint and the end user standpoint, you just come in and walk. We're ready to go.
What is the reaction of people when they actually get to see their home to scale and walk through it.
People are unbelievably excited. I think there's the newness of it all, right? But then when they really get into the meat of walking their home, the conversations that take place, and we invite builders in, we invite designers in, anybody whose opinion you want. And I say that a little tongue in cheek because
you need to be somewhat careful.
Someone you got to be careful because you're going to get the opinions, whether you want them or not. But the conversations that happen on the floor, it's almost like the first time they've seen their design because it's translated into a way they understand it. It's not that they're not absolutely intelligent people who can understand things. It's they don't read floor plans. And scaling them to a piece of paper is just not always realistic. It's like it's the first time they've seen their home. And that excitement, it's pretty awesome. We don't always capture it on video as quickly as we want, but it's always excitement. And then it's always leads to really, really good conversation.
I think that's one of the things people don't realize is there is an art to reading construction documents and floor plans, and you get them and it may look one way. I've tried to interpret them and it's a nightmare.
Yeah, it can be for sure. Are there common changes that after people walk through? I mean, do they focus on the primary suite? Do they focus on the kitchen, great room? What are some of the more common changes that are discussed?
We spend a lot of time in kitchens, just like you will when you build your house. Everybody knows that's the gathering place of the home. And so we spend a lot of time in those relationships around, okay, that what used to be a working triangle in the 80s, right? From an architecture standpoint, that relationship of, okay, I'm at my stove, now I want to go to my fridge and I want to go to my sink, but also the relationship of, do you have enough room to circulate? That's an area that's missed on floor plans a lot, not by the architect, but just an understanding from the homeowner or the end user is, what is that circulation path? The end of the day, the last thing you want in your custom home is to feel like you're shimmying around furniture or behind the back of a couch to your sliding door because you didn't quite have as much space for your furniture as you thought you're going to. So the circulation path is the thing that we most common alter and adjust and see changed because they didn't fully understand that concept more so than just the size of a room.
Is that where the 1,500 square feet kind of comes into play? Is
Those
it typical?
Connections, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So that you can walk between your kitchen to your living room or from your entry into your sitting room or whatever that relationship might be.
Share some of the feedback that you're getting from builders, the clients, and other architects. And you probably can gather, we're builders, right? Mm-hmm. And we're talking to you about it. We're very excited. We see the benefits of it. So I have to believe that's across the board.
It's been 100% a positive experience for both sides of the coin. The last thing we want to do is cause any points of unrest throughout the build. We're just trying to get all the stakeholders to buy in together early, right? And to have those conversations so that everybody has a really firm grasp because, it just happens so often that you get into the process and there's this point of enlightenment where they're like, oh, I just didn't realize it was going to be this, right? And so having those conversations early in a low stakes environment is one where it's beneficial for everybody involved. And from the building and designing standpoint, it's never an intention to go in and slash up the plan and go through because there's already been a lot of thought. And these are experts putting these things together. They know what they're doing. But getting them to gather around it and to understand it on the floor plan, when we talk to our builder partners and our designers afterwards, it's a shrinking of the time to get buy-in a lot of times. These things that maybe they've been trying to translate in plan or in rendering for months, sometimes they automatically got buy-in in that hour we were together, whether it's in a kitchen space, whether it's in one of the room sizes that I thought the homeowner might think, hey, I really wanted a bigger master suite or I really wanted more space in my closet. Then they're in it and it's like, oh, this is huge, and that just doesn't always translate. And so we had a really good example. We did a home here in St. Louis that was more of a shotgun style, and the framing changed, and the house shrunk on this shotgun home that was already only about 25 feet wide. It shrunk 4 to 5 inches, and the builder was really lamenting this conversation and worried about it. And we just walked it. We walked both versions, and it was a non-issue. In 5 minutes, we were done, and that builder left and said, I'll never build again without walking my plans for those reasons.
So is it more builders that are coming in with their clients, or is it clients who are coming in on their own?
Sure.
What mix are you seeing?
We have a mix of both. We have a lot of homeowners that are coming in and bringing it themselves because they found out about us and they knew it was so pivotal for their job. Because a lot of these people would like to do this once or maybe not for another 20 plus years. And so they want to get it right. And so it's so important to them. But once we're getting our industry partners in, they're seeing the value when they're there.
So you mentioned value. I think that we would get a lot of emails if we didn't ask you about the cost. So let's get the main question out of the way. Talk to us about the cost for your service.
We want this to be a tool for everybody, whether you're building a $600,000 home or $10 million home, right? And so for us, we do a flat fee of $950. Come walk every inch of your home. We're going to be in there. It might take us 1 hour. It might take us 2 hours. We're going to go through methodically so you experience your home. Everything's going to be ready like we talked about the moment you walk in the door to get started. If you want to come the after hours, we can have some cocktails as well, some snacks. But we're going to walk in and we're going to go through every inch of your home. $950 is a flat fee to get through it.
Similar at all of the Walk Your Plans locations, or does it vary a little bit?
It varies a little bit based on the location throughout the United States. Some areas have different pricing structures based on how it works with their communities.
From a builder's perspective, I would say that is very reasonable, simply because I know a lot of times clients are going to want to see color elevations or 3D renderings of this or that or something else. And quite frankly, those can cost more than what you're charging to walk through the house.
That's right.
So from a builder's perspective, I think that's very reasonable.
For us, we want it to be because we feel like it should be a standard of care for people who are doing it so they understand it. We don't want to make it cost prohibitive to be able to do that. And so it's absolutely a valuable thing, especially when you look at fraction of a percent on the overall build cost. But if you have those elevations, those renderings, we can look through those during our time together too.
So one of the points that we wanted to talk to our listeners about in building a floor plan is that it really shouldn't be about square footage. It should be about vision. And I feel like that shotgun plan and being able to actually walk it really speaks to the fact that 7,000 square feet might feel different with a different floor plan than 3,000 square feet. We built a house in Augusta that 3,000 square feet felt enormous just because of the way that it was laid out. It felt palatial and well done. You really need to start with vision, not square footage.
That's right.
So,
I think people get so hung up on square footage and what they hear of these industry pricing is how it's gone up. There's no denying that. And obviously COVID had a lot to do with that and it's translated on. But I hear so many people go back and forth about, well, I really don't want to go over 3,000 square feet. So now all of a sudden 3,100 square foot sounds like this monstrous gap. Whereas depending on how they're approaching their build, we want to maximize square footage in the right areas, right? The places where life is going to happen that accommodates their family. And so having square footage for the sake of square footage doesn't do anybody good. It's appropriating it in the right places. And I think, to your point, saying it that way, the vision is what matters to make that home feel the way you want it to.
Let's go back to what you just said, appropriating it in the right places. That is true. And what people need to understand that, yeah, it does boil down to a cost per square foot. But if you're trying to reduce the size of your home, pulling square footage out of the middle of the room doesn't do much to the price per square foot because it doesn't include some of the more expensive items such as the kitchens, the bathrooms, the windows, and all that. So, be sure to work with your builder, be sure to work with your architect and truly understand that if you have a goal of 3,000 square feet or 5,000 or 6,000, don't be afraid to let it grow a little bit if some of those transitional spaces need to be larger, because you need to understand the cost ramifications of those spaces, and you can't equate them to the same cost as a kitchen or the primary bathroom and areas like that.
And I think that's hitting the nail on the head. Not all square footage is the same, and not what it does to the overall, even the envelope of the home makes a big impact, right? Adding corners to your foundations are one thing that's going to jump off the page. Your truss package is going to jump off the page, but the biggest thing is bring that all to your architect as early as possible, because what you don't want to do is on revision round number 3, be talking now all of a sudden about those things. Bring it to them and let them work at what they do to get that on the page early so you can have those conversations about where it's the right place for that square footage add or detraction.
When we were talking about kind of the circulation, one of the things that we always recommend is forward planning too. So, you were talking about the spaces between furniture, but, there's a space between your countertops and, your work areas in your kitchen in order to allow accessibility and stuff like that. Do you guys do anything with accessibility specifically in Walk Your Plans, or is that, something that the designer is kind of talking their clients through?
We're in a lucky situation where we have so many designers who are so thoughtful in what they do, right? But our staff at Walk Your Plans, particular to the St. Louis location, but also in other locations, is trained to know some of those things. And so if we have a little bit of heads up ahead of time, we can be looking for those things to help guide through those conversations. But at the end of the day, there are some of those areas that we want to make sure we're accommodating of those turn radiuses, of those heights on our countertops, having clear spaces to turn around in, especially in bathrooms and other hallways areas that can jump off the page at you pretty quick when you're inside of it, and stuff that we want to key in on.
Like zero entry thresholds too and things
Sure.
like that. Is that
Absolutely.
something that you would probably pick up on, or?
Yeah, those a lot of times on those plans are a call out, right? Or a note on the plan. And so making sure that those are thought through and the different ways you can do zero entry. I've seen it 3 ways just in the last 6 months of how they'll attack zero entry. And there are some ways that are definitely better and others. And what's the beauty of this is maybe it's the first time they've actually paid attention to that note, and it starts that conversation rather than later when it's actually starting to pour in those slabs.
Earlier in our conversation, you had mentioned ceiling heights. Lots of different options when it comes to ceiling heights, whether it's just raised plates or whether you've got a vault or whether you have a coffer, lots of different options. But from a design perspective and good conversations to have with the architect, with the builder, with your designer are things like ceiling heights, very important. Natural light, I think, is something else that's very critical because we want to understand how the homeowner plans to use the home. Where should we have windows? Do we need transoms? Do we need skylights? I think that's another important conversation. And then views. Views are critical. Maybe not as much when you're landlocked like we are in the St. Louis area, but when we build out in Park City, on every set of plans we do, we have what's called a view corridor. And it has an arrow that points to the various lakes, the various mountains, areas in which people want to make sure they have a view. So these are all things that should be taken into consideration when you're talking about planning your house, designing your house. Focus on natural light, ceiling heights, views. I think those are things that don't rush the process and make sure you accomplish all of that.
I think that's 100% right. I think even with our flat land that we live here in St. Louis so often, having the wrong view could be just as equally important as maximizing a beautiful view, right? And so thinking about that early, thinking about how the sun moves through your lot and how it moves through those windows. Do you want that easterly sunlight in your bedroom or not, right? Do you watch a lot of TV in a certain time of day that you're worried about glare? All of those things that you want to factor in because we don't build in a vacuum. We don't design in a vacuum. And so we want to make sure, even if there's a plan that you like, that it's being laid out correctly with your specific location. And those are all things that you want to be thinking of because those are going to affect your day-to-day. Absolutely.
And public spaces and private spaces are something I think a lot of people don't really think about whenever you're placing rooms in an architectural plan. And I always bring up, there's a house that we built out in Wildwood, Missouri, that the primary bedroom suite was on the first floor, but off to the side. And then there were 2 secondary bedrooms up on the top floor where the kids could come back and bring the grandkids and they wouldn't hear little feet running over the top of them. And so, it's thinking about where do you want privacy? I think it's important in Utah with a lot of big family homes where you have multi-generational gathering and things like that too, and how much privacy you need and where those public spaces are going to lie in your house too.
And that's another thing too that we notice so often that I think gets looked over or rushed through is the ultimate basement layout down the road is usually a product of your main floor. And the basement is that communal hangout space so often for the kiddos. It's where they get to be crazy and rambunctious and do whatever they want and try to break something. And you don't often want that right under the primary suite either. And those kind of correlations, the cohesive layout that goes with that and making sure that We walk so many plans now, which is I don't know if you guys are seeing this with golf simulators in the basement.
Yes, we are
It's
doing.
unbelievable.
I cannot tell you how many projects we're currently doing with golf simulators.
I mean, I'm about to partner with some golf simulator company because clearly it's the business to be in, but it's just unbelievable the amount of that. And there needs to be a lot of planning for that to go in a scenario where not only does it work from all that comes with a golf swing and not trying to hurt someone, but from a sound standpoint so that works.
There's tubing that's needed for like all of the electronics and things like that you have to take into
just the clearances involved from a height and width and depth.
And really what we're talking about is common sense planning. Mm-hmm. Common sense, put your team together. That's the builder, the architect, the designer. Everybody get on the same page. Everybody collaborate together. Slow down. Make sure you take the time to let the project breathe a little bit. Red lines. Red lines are something that I think are extremely important in this industry where you'll get together and have a meeting. And I'm sure, Chris, you come back with a package for your clients with the layouts and everything. They need to take the time and really think about that and understand it and then get together and talk about what to change. And, a lot of times we call those red lines if you're going to be changing. Sure. Yep. I think people they're so excited about the process, they tend to rush things. That's where I think that team atmosphere is so important, slowing things down are important, and that's where, walk your plans comes into play too. When you think you've nailed it, don't go to construction documents until you walk those plans and make sure that you're comfortable with this. Because once you go to construction documents, that's where you have to get structural engineers involved. Mm-hmm. The architect has to take a lot more time putting in details. And not to give away tricks of the trade, but most architects have hourly rates or some sort of a rate up front. But once you go to construction documents, it's much more intensive work.
Take it one step further. Once you get to frame and foundations, you're locked, right? Yes. And so the earlier in that process that we could walk and start to make some of those conversations, the less of a waterfall that's going to cause in the process, less of a delay, and less of money out of your pocket at the end of the day. Because just like you said, at that point, they're deciding how to build this house. They've got all of the engineers involved. They're going through with their, with your subs at that point, getting things put together. And so changes at that point can even really cause some time. But you said it exactly right. Don't rush that process because everybody's excited to get a hole in the ground and start going because you want to live in your new space. You're excited about it. You're excited to start this new chapter with your family. Well, the chapter is going to be a lot longer than this process ever was, right? And so don't rush it because you hear it so often. This is part of why Walk Your Plans exists and why we felt so emotional about bringing it is we hear so often, man, if I had it to do over again, I would do this, or I would have added that, or I would have done this. And it's not that they didn't have a good experience. It's just they didn't quite understand what they were getting.
I call that the I wish, because remember a couple episodes ago, we were talking about 2 words I never want to hear from our clients is I wish.
It's heartbreaking.
I wish we had done something different, or I wish we had done this. That's where, your advice of slow down, take your time, use this service that's available to truly understand your build. It's a great opportunity.
I'm going to, in our show notes, actually put together kind of a checklist. But some of the things that, while I was doing some research for this episode, I thought were so cool is thinking about holiday decor for outlet placement. I think I would have never thought of that. And then putting outlets inside cabinets and things like that too. So we'll have some of those items on.
Absolutely.
You're mentioning, you're just scratching the surface, Melody. This is such a intense, complicated process that is another reason to, just as we're talking about, slow down, don't rush it, let it come to you, don't force everything.
And I think there's some standards, right, that we will typically go by when, even with things like outlets, right, from space from the corners and the amount per room. But ultimately, if you're building a custom home or a new space, you got to personalize it for your guys' lifestyle. If you guys do Christmas tree in a particular corner, or you're thinking about those kind of holiday things that are kind of nuanced but take up a part of the year, or just an area like a pantry where you wanted a little more power for those things, those appliances to be hidden. Those are the things you want to take your time on and really think about how you're going to use it day to day.
I'll tell you what, our house, I always complain about my house on this podcast. It should be like its own podcast. We have an outlet that is by our trees. That's where we run all of our Christmas lights off. And somehow it is tied into our powder room outlet. And every time we turn our Christmas lights on, pop. You can hear that.
So we get to see a lot of things when we go. We do a lot of remodels, and we always tell people we've seen a lot. We have not seen everything, and we saw an outlet, a switch in the basement that controlled the internet, whether it was on or off.
Oh my gosh!
And I'm still racking my brain as to what benefit that would have for the home.
As the parent of a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old, I can actually
maybe you put a lock on it.
Yeah.
Well, Chris Campbell, this has been absolutely a wonderful experience getting to talk with you about Walk Your Plans, located at the Westport area in the St. Louis area. Also, for our Park City clients, there is an opportunity to walk your plans in the Salt Lake area. By the end of the year, Chris says there should be about 40 locations across the country. Take advantage of it. This is the one opportunity you have to walk your plans before the builder starts to build that house. A little bit of housekeeping here. So your other job is a licensed architect?
So we do work mostly from the residential side, but we do architecture and full service design, so interiors and exteriors as well.
Your wife is your interior designer, I'm assuming.
With her team, that's right.
With her
We have a great team,
okay.
that's right.
We love to use the word team
that's
around
right,
here.
but she's incredible. She is a real gift for it.
Awesome. And your architectural firm is called White Tail Design Studio, located in Illinois, Southern Illinois. All right, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for your time. And I promise we will start sending some clients your way to walk their plans and make sure it's what they want to build before we actually start swinging the hammers and digging for the foundation and all that kind of fun stuff.
Well, we're excited to be here. We're excited to be opening our locations to serve our clients, and we'll definitely be back and talk soon.
Melody, that was such an enlightening interview with Chris, and to understand what is available out there now for homeowners to walk their home before it's even built. I mean, think about it. We've been building 21 years. Our homeowners have never had the chance to walk that home before it's been built. That changes now.
Well, and I know that we've talked in the past about that optical illusion once you get into framing, and, it seems like it's smaller, but it sounds like there are times that you get in and this is a lot bigger when you're actually walking through the rooms. So it's a really neat tool.
And it's something, too, that if you really think about it, the information you can gather in that 1 hour or 2 hours as you walk your entire home is invaluable because, to Chris's point earlier, you don't technically get to see that house until the walls are up. And at that point, if you want to make changes, unfortunately, most of the time a change order comes along with it because the walls are up. You've already paid the crews to frame it, and now you have to change it. So you might be thinking, do I have the $950 to invest? But I tell you what, to save from change orders down the line or to really get a feel for the size of your house and how it flows, to me, it just really seems like a much needed avenue for those deciding to build their dream home.
It's interesting that the whole business idea and them opening the St. Louis location, it came from a love of building houses. I love that. So
So you have some final tips or red flags that you want to share?
Yeah, and we didn't really touch much on this, but, we have touched on it in other seasons. Just a quick reminder that, if you buy online stock floor plans, that is not a buildable floor plan.
Most of the time,
yeah. Correct. And that's a red flag. You might think that you're saving money. You may end up spending more in the long run after design fees and getting that up to municipal codes.
Yeah, let's dig into that very quickly because you're right. When you're talking about stock plans, they have been designed more on a national level where most local municipalities have their own codes in which you have to build to. So just be aware if you want to go down that route, make sure, because sometimes you can have those plans modified for your local codes. Just make sure that that's part of it. But what we generally tell people is to look online, come up with a really good idea of what you want, maybe even save some of the plans, save some of the elevation, because that can be your starting point for the architect or the draftsman that you start to work with.
Another point that came up in our discussion was future proofing and the flexibility of it. I thought that was such an interesting insight that your main floor has such a big impact on the basement. And, we're building for a lot of families that have small kids right now, right? And so maybe they're not thinking about the fact that there's going to be we have a baseball training facility in our basement. I mean, there are loud things that happen in those basements.
Well, not only the basement, but think about how the first floor also impacts the second floor if you're building, a two-story home or a story and a half home. Because if you want a vault in your great room or if you want a tall ceiling in your great room, How do you build around that on the second floor and still have the space you need up there? What about ceiling heights? What about roof pitches? And there's a lot of things to take into consideration. But again, putting together that right team. When we were talking to Chris about this, and Melody, for 8 seasons, we've been talking about the importance of putting that team together. And don't just get with an architect and don't just design the plans and then go out because you think competitive bidding is the way to go. It generally does not end well, because the house is over-designed, it's too large, too complicated, the budget's going to come back much higher than you want. If you truly get with your builder, put your builder, architect, designer together, tell them what your budget is, you can work together to meet that threshold, and it really is the best way to go about a successful custom home building project.
Somebody with the right vibe. That guy had the right vibe. I like Chris.
Chris had the right vibe for sure. What I really liked about him is his background as an architect, his wife's background as an interior designer. They saw the need for Walk Your Plans, but they're still actively involved in the design process. So they get it. They're outstanding. Really glad we had a chance to meet with them. So, I'm a little scared of our next topic, though.
I know, because we're going to continue digging into the
we're going to dig into the budget, aren't we?
Yes, we are. But maybe we'll soften the blow because we have 2 fantastic folks joining us. They are so knowledgeable and just great people to talk to in general.
Honestly, I know I'm joking about the budget, but again, if you're well planned and have the right design, your budget is not going to be a surprise. And we've had many successful projects over the years where we've been able to nail the budget. Now, I'm not going to say that we've never missed, because absolutely, especially during COVID, during the pandemic where construction prices skyrocketed. But this is such an important episode that we will have for you next, that we really hope you join us, because we've talked all about building this big, beautiful new dream home. Now we have to put the budget together. So we're going to have some tips on how that process works and what to look for.
Yep. Join us then.
Be sure to subscribe to get the latest episodes, and please rate and review. The Art of Custom is produced by Hug Monster Sound with original music by Adam Frickfordine. Thanks for listening.